Hello, everybody. Thank you so much for joining us this evening. If it's anything like Suffolk, you're sitting possibly in a very warm room because you've had to warm it because it's been so cold. Is it cold with you, Kat?
Yes, very cold. Yeah.
Well, obviously you know who Kat is because you've seen our introductions, who we are. I'm Kathryn. Thank you very much for joining us, Kat. Let me just put us on the proper. There we go. That's better, isn't it?
Yeah.
So we're here to talk about how settings can support healthy choices, but we didn't put food in there.
No.
So we could include anything, couldn't we?
I think that's what's important. Yeah.
Sorry?
I think that's what's important about it. Healthy choices isn't just about food.
No, it's not. But we're mentioning food because Kat's just, recently written a new book. And there's more about that later at the end. But her book is about food.
Yes, it's about Mealtimes. Yes.
At Mealtimes, that's right. So tell us, why did you write a book about Mealtimes?
So I've started organising people's rooms and routines, and the parents always say the worst routine that they've got in the house is their meal times. And I'm sure that's similar for settings as well. In fact, I've just had a nursery contact me to do a workshop because their Ofsted asked them to be better at their meal times because the transition it meant the children weren't actually actively engaged or learning. I think it's just really important section of the day that is amazing for learning, but also especially thinking about healthy options and healthy choices. Parents have definitely come to me and asked how they can make it better.
Yeah, actually, I would say the routine is a choice in a way for the adults, isn't it? I know in my nurseries I didn't want children standing around waiting, not having anything to do. So our meal times were always staggered, and our snacks we didn't do a rolling snack exactly, or a snack cafe. The children used to come and sit at tables with a member of staff after washing their hands and what have you. But each table would start at a different time. So the children can continue playing and it was the children that finished playing that used to go for their snack first, really. But I think it can be quite difficult to organise.
Yeah, but what you're mentioning there is obviously the other bits that they're going to have with this member of staff there is the conversation and the turn taking and all those juicy bits of learning that actually are really important. And there is actually a study, it was for mealtimes in their home, but it absolutely works for settings as well. Children feel better, they have better self-esteem, they obviously have better conversational skills if they have a routine where you sit down and you talk while you're doing it. And actually, I don't know whether the adults would be eating as well, but children are more likely to eat healthy foods if an adult is doing it because they copy them. So if you can sit down and also eat the same foods as they eat, they're more likely to, because then they more trust you, because if you're not eating it and you're saying, oh, it's really good for you, but why aren't you eating it? These are the things that they might think as a toddler, like it can't be good. And I can talk about language as well later. We'll do that after.
You're not coming out very clearly, my end, Kat. Can you sit closer to your microphone?
Yes, is that better?
Yes, I think that's better. So having so for the adults to have good routines, then that spills onto the children's security possibly, so they can enjoy their meal.
Yeah, and being involved, making sure that there's an adult involved, because there's so much more learning to be had.
Yeah, I agree. And staff would eat their meal with the children, and they had it free, so it was worth their while eating nursery food rather than bringing in a packed lunch. or they'd eat nursery food, and then in their lunch break they're going to have their packed lunch.
I think it's really important to know the children you're with as well. So this is teaching rather than in nursery. I was a year 2 teacher and I had two children that one was bulimic and one was anorexic. So they're only 6 or 7 at this age. It was so heartbreaking. But I found out about the little girl who was anorexic, and they were saying, please don't like put your own food, you know, like your dislikes and likes upon them. So when we were eating with them, they said, like, don't take your cucumbers out your sandwich, or, you know, don't show them that you're fussy. I'm trying to think of the words. Yeah, I guess I suppose it is fussy. Or like, make sure you've taken the cucumbers out before you get to sit down with her. So then she's more, like we said, children copy adults what they do. So if an adult is there and they're taking out all the gherkins, let's say, or fruit cucumbers or something, then the children will be like, maybe that's not good for me. And we're going to talk about good and bad for us in a minute as well, because it's really important not to use that language, actually. And I know I've mentioned it twice, but there's another way. A lot of adults say, oh, you try this, it's really delicious, it's really good for you. But at some point you'll have said that, and actually it was really disgusting and I didn't like the texture and it was really horrible. So they're not going to trust you by you just saying those things. So if you're eating them and showing them that actually it is delicious and that you enjoy it, and the other thing is that it's okay not to like food, it's okay not to like some foods. And I think part of the problem that we have is maybe in settings is if we make them eat something that they don't like, then they're not going to want to try new things in the future, which means their choices are impeded just by that one experience that they've had.
Yeah, that's really interesting, because often parents think their children are really fussy, and then they come to nursery and they eat peas because their friends just eat peas. So they just copy their friends. They drink milk because their friends drink milk. So the same thing, you know, that's the same sort of scenario, isn't it, where they're copying other children. Okay, right, that's really interesting. I hadn't really thought of, I mean, when the snakes came in to visit, before they arrived, I'd always say, if you don't like snakes, just stay away.
Okay.
Because if somebody's scared of a snake, you know, it's very difficult to pretend that you're not.
Yes.
And I suppose, so it's really the same with food, isn't it? If you don't like cucumber, remove it before you sit down in front of the children.
Well, I think it depends if you know that child well enough. So obviously I was given information about this little girl before I ate with her, and they were saying this is how you can support her better. However, like I said, I hate mushrooms, I would not eat a mushroom even if you put it on my plate. And actually it's okay not to like foods. Everybody has got something that they dislike, and it's okay not, it's the texture or it's the taste or it's something, or like,
so you don't like mushrooms whether they're cooked or whether they're raw?
So I've never had them raw.
They're really nice raw.
But that's okay that you think that. There's a phrase that in my book and that we've been using as a nanny. One of them is don't yuck my yum, but we also say don't yum my yuck as well. So it's okay. Don't yuck my yum. Don't say something that I really like is horrible to you. That's fine. We can have different opinions. But then on the other side, don't yum my yuck, as in, if I don't like mushrooms, it's absolutely fine.
Don't try and make you like them.
Well, on that, when your children are young, what I do is to try and help them eat it 18 times before they decide whether they like it or not.
How many times?
18.
18. Okay. Right.
Yeah.
Well, I'll just tell the audience that mushrooms in a vinaigrette type soup, well, just a bit of oil and mixed herbs are absolutely delicious. But I didn't discover that. I mean, I do like cooked mushrooms, but I don't like raw tomatoes, but I can eat cooked tomatoes. I'm really weird. I don't like runner beans, because I can remember as a child choking on one because it was stringy. So I don't like runner beans, and I'm not keen on beans, the texture of beans. I'll eat them. I'll eat kidney beans, but I don't actually enjoy them because of the texture.
Yeah, and that's fair.
Yeah. but I don't think there's anything I really wouldn't eat. Although I can tell you a funny story. It is appropriate, I think. It's about food. So I went to China in September to do some consultancy work, and every night I was taken out to eat. And I was taken out to the restaurant that did chicken, and the restaurant that did fish, and the restaurant that did beef. Okay, you get the picture.
Yeah.
And this particular night, she told me that I should choose where to go. So I said, well, I can choose, but you have to tell me what the food is.
Yeah.
I'm only choosing, from what the restaurant looks like. So she said, this is. So I said, oh, yes, that's lovely. Super duper. So we went in, we ordered. And then she said to me, she doesn't speak very good English, but she said, do you eat this at home? And I said, well, it's not something we eat regularly, but I always have some duck in the freezer. And she said, no, it's not duck.
Uh-oh.
And my heart sunk. And I thought, oh my goodness, I don't want some pet animal being served up for me. That was my initial thought. And it was frog.
Oh, okay. I've had frog's legs.
They were frog's legs. And I've never had frog's leg before, and it does taste like chicken, and it was fine. I just couldn't eat the flippers. And I was quite conscious of how many frogs were in the casserole dish as well, because they only have a few legs.
Get very much meat on it, do you? So
no, that's right.
I'd rather.
But there you go. But that, we're thinking about that. That's really a bit like what a child would experience. They experience new foods and they haven't got a clue whether they're going to like them or not. I wonder if their heart sinks and thinks, oh my goodness, what's this?
Yeah. So I do something called Try It Tuesday. So every Tuesday I put something new on their plate, and it's with lots of other foods that I already know that they will love and enjoy and will keep them satisfied and give them all the nutrients that they need. And it's in an environment where it's okay not to like it. If they try it and they don't want it to eat any more of it, that's fine. But the preface is that you do it another 17 times before they decide yes or no. So I think it's really important. We talk about self-esteem and resilience and independence and all these things, and doing something new, whether it's trying a new food or using a new implement to prepare food. These are all things that actually we do need to help our children learn to do. There's something called learned helplessness, where children will just not do anything because they've either learned that they can't do it because it's too tricky, or that someone else has done it for them and then they never have to do it. So if we're only providing our children with the same foods that we know that they love and like, they'll never get the opportunity to try something new, and you never know, they might like it, and it will enhance their meal times.
I hadn't heard of that term before. What's it called?
Try it.
Learned helplessness.
Oh, learned helplessness. Yeah. Yes, learned helplessness. I actually did my master's on learned helplessness.
Right. Okay, that's interesting. But for me, I think choices comes before food. I think choices should be something that we're offering children, babies even. 2 toys. Which one do you want to play with? 2 sets of socks. To encourage children to make choices from a very early age. And I think particularly in group settings, it's easy to forget that because we're feeding the masses, or we're moving the masses from point A to point B. However many children you've got in your room, you're going to have more children than you would in a home environment.
Definitely. And I like what you said there about 2 choices, because as we know, so many choices causes overwhelm. So if you gave a baby or a toddler or even a child or even an adult 10 choices, it would actually be quite hard for them to whittle it down to 1 or 2 of the ones that they actually want. And that can be a colour of a cup. It could be a piece of fruit that they're having for their snack. So if we reduce the amount of choices but still give them options, that's the way forward to make sure that they have the independence and the autonomy that we're trying to help them have.
And I know this isn't the subject for the evening, but it's the same as behaviour. You know, giving the child two choices: do you want to use the dustpan and brush or the broom?
Yes.
You know, rather than say you've got to clear it up now, and you get an instant reaction that they don't want to do it.
Absolutely. And today, this is nannying and not in a setting, but the child had put the television on and the father said he had to play piano first. So I said, would you like to pause the television or shall I turn it off in 5 seconds? And he paused the television. Basically, the TV's going off, but I'm giving him the option. And more often than not, they choose to do the right thing. So
yes. Yeah. Okay. So I know I've been to one of your events, and so I know that rainbows are quite strong in your methodology. Yes. But before we get onto that, we had a brief discussion beforehand about should we give children choices that are all good choices. But I've been thinking this evening before coming on. Adults need to be able to distinguish between what is good and healthy and what perhaps isn't. And I don't think, you know, the fizzy pop and the chocolate bars, although chocolate I think is a better food than boiled sweets. You know, that they're not healthy. I mean, everybody knows that. But I mean, we've got lots of processed foods now. We've got lots of additives now. We've got lots of very fatty foods. A lot of meat that's got lots of water in it. No, we've got there's lots of problems with our diet generally, or what's on offer to us as adults. And as adults, I think possibly we need to be better educated on what is actually nutritious.
So you were talking about not necessarily cakes and chocolate, and you were talking about chocolate, but if we have wheat, if you can have it whole grain, that's better. And as you say, rather than processed, is it possible to make it? Could you make it in your setting and then share it? I appreciate that would be quite a lot of baking, but you could do it with the children. But also within your carbohydrates, it's not that the rice or the potato is wrong for us or bad for us, though it's got a really bad rep. It's actually the white bread and the cake and the biscuits because of all the ingredients that they've added to it. Like you were just saying, now we've got additives and preservatives and all these things in there that are not healthy for our bodies. But with that, it's balance. You were saying all the boiled sweets are awful for us, very, very bad for our teeth. But also dried raisins are bad for our teeth. But if you have 100 raisins and 100 boiled sweets, I don't think that's quite the same ratio. Let's say if you have 100 grams of raisins and 100 grams of boiled sweets, they're both going to make you sick. So really, we've got to think about balance. And after dried fruits or boiled sweets, I would also talk about let's clean our teeth now, make sure we do it properly. How many times can we get it? You know, so it's the same language, whether it's a boiled sweet or whether it's dried fruit.
My children didn't have sweets when they were little. Then they had a binge when they were out of sight and could go and buy their own. They haven't got any fillings, I'm pleased to say, and I think they do eat chocolate and things, but sensibly. But I didn't give them a choice of whether they could have sweets or something like an apple. I didn't give them those choices. And that's something that we perhaps could debate a bit, whether that's a good idea.
Well, psychologically, if you withhold something, then when you have the freedom, usually that it tends to mean that you might overeat that, or whatever behavior it is, if you're not allowed to do something that you want to do for a long time. If we're doing it with our children and they don't know about the other things, it's really funny. One of my nanny families, they were really precise with their first child. They made their own tomato ketchup, so it didn't have any sugar in it. They made everything from scratch, including all the baby puree, blah blah blah. And then when the second came along, everyone was having lollipops. So it was interesting to me to see the difference. I mean, the second one was still obsessed with sweets because the first one was still obsessed with sweets by the time I got there. I just think we do know about psychology. We do know that if we stop ourselves from having things entirely, then it does end up that people end up having too much in one go. So I would say balance is the key. And so with my children, I don't say, if they ask for a sweet, I don't say no. I never say no. However, I do say not now. So they do get the choice, they do get to have that thing. And I do support them on how much that they are allowed, just because I'm also feeding them their meal, right? So if they're having it just before a meal time, then that's just basic anatomy and digestion. So.
I mean, my children are in their 30s now, but I wasn't doing it for healthy food reasons. I was doing it for their teeth.
Yes.
Whereas now we've moved on a lot from that, and we appreciate that good food builds good bodies and brains. And we have a better understanding. And I hope my grandchildren, when I get some grandchildren, if I get some grandchildren, will have a different regime to what my children had. But they'll only do that through educating themselves.
And speaking of sugar, you would rather that they had natural sugar than an aspartame, for example, because that's a man-made thing and that's actually worse for our body. So both, and having neither would be the optimum solution. But unfortunately in our world, like we've just had Halloween and there's Halloween candy coming around. On the 1st, everybody's got the chocolate advent calendars, or one of them's got what's the Marks and Spencer's pig. That is basically sugar for their morning sweet now. So it's a funny society. Like we literally
but we also all strive to have things, including me. We're in a consumer society. We want to buy, we want to have, we want, whereas life isn't simple, is it?
No. I like that you said that. I'm supporting a lot of families at the moment to help their children not be attached to objects, to things, and helping them to get their children into the habits of decluttering their toys that they don't want just before a birthday, just before Christmas, so then that they can have new things. And actually getting secondhand presents as well. So I know and the child knows already because they've talked about it, he's getting a new bike for Christmas, and they found it secondhand, and they obviously wanted to check that he liked the colour and blah blah blah, and that he could be the right size for it. And I think this is what we want for our future, is letting our children have these habits where we're not buying new things for the sake of buying new things, and we're not being obsessed with objects like you just said.
It's interesting, isn't it?
I don't know how you do that in a setting.
No, I don't know how you do that in a setting either. Well, I mean, I set my nurseries up over 35 years ago. I've just sold the last one this year. And yes, kite marks were important, but to set it up, I wasn't able to buy all brand new equipment. And I've got some nice community playthings equipment, which I've still got, because I can't let it go for nothing, because I saved to buy it for the children, and to make my nursery look lovely, one particular nursery look lovely, and I just couldn't let it go for nothing. So I think you do both, and I think this perhaps will happen more staff will make resources. Where you can't afford a load of resources because of the economic climate and the lack of funding, and anyway, we won't get onto that tonight.
Well, we can a little bit. Do you know what's really bad for the environment is laminating everything for the sake of laminating it. And when I was a teacher, I laminated everything. And now
you were a good teacher if you laminated things, weren't you?
Well, I mean, and we had to double back everything, and yeah, we wasted a lot of paper just by having protocols that the school had to follow, and like literally had to laminate everything that went on the wall as well. And that can't be recycled, sadly. So I think that's the healthy choices we want. Is healthy for the environment. For our children is to know, even just Christmas wrapping paper is not recyclable. So the best thing that a setting could do is get brown paper. I know it's brown, but actually it's very in right now. Brown paper, and then stamp it so it would be personal, and then that can go in the recycling bin. And I think this is really important for our future. Going back to the food thing, for sustainability, if we reduced our consumption of meat, that is one of the best things we can do for our society moving forward. So as well as Try It Tuesdays, I do meat-free Mondays. It's not something that I've made up, it's something that someone else told me about. But if you follow it, and I actually personally have meat-free days and vegan days. I can't do it every day because I love meat, and actually protein is really good for us and important for us. It's just we do have to think about the environment, and the farming that we do now isn't like it used to be.
No. Saying that, in our nurseries, we did a lot of meat-free meals because it meant that we didn't have to do loads of special diets.
Yeah.
You know, most special diets, you can eat vegetables and nuts and what have you. Oh, not nuts, but pulses and
definitely
seeds, etc.
I've been teaching the children a lot about what proteins are, and so obviously eggs is protein, but now they look on the packets of peas and they're like, this has got 3% protein in it. But on the edamame beans has got protein in it. So actually it's empowering them if they're old enough to read it. Like she's 5, the youngest. She was 3 when I got her, when I started looking after her. But these are all just conversations that we have all day, every day. And on that, we talk about carbohydrates being really important to us, and proteins helping our muscles. And rather than saying good or bad foods, we do say, like, this has got vitamin A. What on earth does that mean? What we can say is, actually, this really helps us get something into our bloodstream. Got more information. So I actually met someone called the Rainbow Fairy. So I'm not a nutritionist, but I did take nutritionist certificates, and I've got weaning certificates as well. But if we find the right words for our children to tell them actually what's in it, and rather than saying it's got vitamins in it, we can say it's got a lot of fiber in it, which means that it's really good for our skin, and sprouts help our skin as well, and it's good for our digestive system. And what does that mean? It means the best thing is talking about poo and wee. Children absolutely love it. So plums are really good for making you poo because it's high in fiber. Are the children going to remember that? Yes. Are they going to eat plums now? Probably. I don't know. They like talking about poo. I really like doing experiments with asparagus and beetroots, because then they can see the next day what's happened and smell it. And all these are things that children are going to want to do experiments like this. And it's fun and it's exciting. So you could all eat asparagus at your nursery and then talk about what's happened the next day. And I don't think we should stay away from, like, it's not rude to talk about poo and wee, because it's actually just science. It's our digestion. Yeah. And we really actually do need them to look at their wee to see what colour it is, to see if they've had enough water that day. And these are all things that we can do with our children and talk to our children about.
Just naturally.
Yeah, and then they won't be embarrassed about talking about it if they do have to go to the doctor when they're an adult, when they're older. But yeah, sweet corn is another one. If they can find sweet corn in the poo. Obviously, you don't want them to touch it. They're just looking.
Yeah. Okay. It's interesting you mentioned raisins, because raisins stick in your teeth. And in our nurseries, we stopped giving raisins, and we also stopped giving fruit juice as well. Well, we used to water it down a lot, and then eventually we gave it up totally. And babies' bottles and things like that with juice in. Hopefully nobody does that these days.
No, and especially because it's so concentrated to their teeth as well.
I mean, straws. I love a straw. My children laugh at me when I drink with a straw. But I love a straw.
So I gave everybody sustainable straws at my book launch, actually. So some of the younger children got silicone ones, and then the older children got bamboo ones. And so it's so funny. I was in the cinema and they gave me a paper one, and the man said, "You're going to have to take 3 because it'll all have disintegrated by the end of the film." And I just thought, how ridiculous that we've gone from, I know plastic's really bad for us, but we've gone from something that is bad to something that's just as bad. So how can we, like when we all started taking our own bags to the shop to carry, how can we do something else, another habit that we have to think about?
Well, I mean, I actually have wide plastic straws that I've bought. I don't like the metal ones.
No.
And wood, anything wood put in somebody's mouth makes me go on edge, like your nails going down a blackboard. So I bought actually some really thick plastic straws, and they have a little brush that you can brush down the middle of them. So made of plastic, they're being used over and over and over and over again, and that plastic made anyway. So I just think it makes sense, if they're making plastic straw, but they're not thrown away the first time.
So not disposable ones.
But that's my personal.
We want to move away from disposable.
No, they're not disposable.
Definitely.
Yeah. Especially if it gets into the oceans.
Yeah.
That might be. Okay. Right. Tell everybody about your rainbow, because I thought this was really quite a good way. In fact, I've got a rainbow in my kitchen right now, and that's probably down to you.
Wonderful. So the reason I ask children to eat a rainbow is because actually what we want for them is gut diversity. So rather than just eating the same fruit all day and every day, because yes, we know they like them, it actually empowers them to think of all the other foods that they could also eat. And if you are trying to eat, it is quite hard to eat a rainbow every day. So I say every week. But I do ask children to eat a traffic light every day, because actually the green, and the darker the green you can get, is the most important vitamins and minerals that well, not minerals, but the most important vitamins have that are really good for us. And when they are, it's something that they can do. It looks really good. It's exciting. I was actually doing it was a rainbow fruit stick, but you can make rainbow vegetable sticks as well and put them in the oven at a demo at the Clean and Tidy Home Show. And I was preparing it all just before I went on to the demo stage, and loads of people came up to me because it was colourful and it looked exciting. They're like, "Ooh, what are you doing?" Children are going to do that. And actually, after, because I was talking about trying new things, literally just after I'd done my demo, a girl came up and asked if she could eat my rainbow stick. And then the mum came to me and said she's never ever tried a grape before, and this is the first. Oh, it was a blueberry. Sorry, she's never had a blueberry before, and she tried it for the first ever time. And that's what I'm wanting from this, is that children are trying new things and liking them, and getting excited about all the things that we can eat. I'm interviewing a nutritionist for my blog. It'll be out very soon. But she asks adults to eat 30 plants a week. So plant can be anything. So rice is a plant. 30 every week.
Wow.
But that's not fruit or veg. That's plant. So that could be rice, because rice is a plant. I would argue cocoa is also a plant. But I don't know. But what she's trying to do, and what I'm trying to do, is help people with gut diversity, because that's the most important thing. If you're eating the same thing day in, day out, your body will not have enough nutrients to survive.
That's interesting, because I have an allergy to fresh fruit.
Okay.
And it's really unfortunate because fruit is so convenient to eat, isn't it? And I can eat it cooked, but I can't have apples particularly, or melons. Bananas, I can eat a banana if I eat it really quick. But I went on an anaphylactic or food allergy course, and I was told that I was very close to having anaphylactic shock. But, you know, if you have a child, I'm just thinking, you know, if you have a child who has an allergic reaction to something, or has an allergy to something, it makes it much harder, doesn't it?
Yes, of course.
I mean, mine didn't start until I was about 16, 17. Actually, it was later than that. I was probably 18, 19, actually, because I was working in Hackney at the time. And the doctor said to me, he couldn't believe I was allergic to an apple. And he said, you need to wash it. It's probably the insecticide or something on it. And I was eating melon. I'm thinking, well, I didn't have to, you know, it's not the skin of the fruit. But I'm just thinking, you know, for a parent, particularly if you've got several children, and same in a nursery, you know, you've got several children, all with different types of allergies, and you've got to think about how to help those children get their gut diversity, as you were talking about. Must be quite difficult.
I can imagine, and even not just thinking about allergies, but likes and dislikes. So I had a family of 3 children, and I did make 5 different vegetables every meal, just so then I knew that each of them were getting at least 3, and then I would just eat all 5. Because they, like, one wouldn't eat raspberries, the other one wouldn't eat, I don't know, cucumber, let's say. So when I did provide that, I just provided something else as well for the other child, and I always ate with them. So I definitely got my gut diversity.
Yeah, I'm just wondering, I mean, if they had been babies with you, you know, all the way up, they probably wouldn't have been like that, would they?
Well, that's the thing. If you can get them young enough for their likes and dislikes, I'm not talking about allergies here, the more they try, the more likely they're willing to open their palate for lots of things. And yeah, they're more likely to. But again, it's okay not to like something because of the texture. And obviously, I do talk a bit about SEN children as well. And the texture is something, if you get
sensory processing.
Absolutely. The strawberry is not going to feel the same, taste the same, be the same consistency. Like, all strawberries are not the same. So that is something that we do have to think about. But there are ways, like a carrot, if you cut a raw carrot into a strip, that will be crunchy, and you've just got to learn the children. Absolutely. You need to know those children inside out.
That's really, I mean, food is not my thing, really. I mean, I got cookery GCSE. We had to do nutrition. I actually had to do nutrition in my NNEB as well, thinking about it. But food, I don't. If people have heard me talk about food before, cooking for me is a nightmare. It's you know, particularly if it's just for one. I enjoy doing dinner parties and things like that, special cooking. I like doing things like that, but everyday cooking is an absolute bore and a chore for me. So food isn't my thing, but meeting children's needs is, and I'm becoming much, much more interested in food and the importance of food than I was 2 years ago. I'm finding it quite fascinating. Because a lot of what we do, well, what we believe is right, you know, in giving children choices and what have you, and not putting upon children our own feelings and our own prejudices against things, right? In everyday life, we should also be conscious of that with food. For me, being a farmer's daughter, I used to have to drink warm milk from the cow. I used to tip my glass over and it used to get filled up again. It was horrible. And the milk used to, at school, in little bottles, used to sit on a nice warm radiator. I love milk now, however. I've never got enough of it in the house. But anyway, that's another matter. But food was always about finishing what was on your plate. And I mean, there are lots of strategies that we used in our nurseries, which I think are quite helpful. We had really large plates of, an adult sized dinner plate for each child, and we gave the children a little of everything, and I mean a little, a teaspoon of everything on the plate, and then they had serving dishes, and then they could help themselves to everything else. But really, it wasn't really about the nutrition, if I was being honest. And it was, although we were offering nutritious meals, my oldest daughter's a dietitian, so we were offering nutritious meals, but it wasn't really about that when it came to the table. It was more about finishing what was on your plate.
So actually, I've got a huge story in my book about finishing what's on your plate. I don't like chips, and it was because they used to be deep fried. Do you remember? And when they go cold, it left a layer of fat on the top of your mouth.
Yeah, I know exactly what you mean.
Ooh. So one day I must have eaten that cold chip, and then someone did come into school and say chips were bad, and I was very susceptible. But my mum probably hated that lady because I stopped eating chips from after then, and I've only just started in the last, I don't know, 5 years, but they're not deep fried anymore. But the reason I'm saying that is, in the olden days, when I was a child, you were told you had to eat everything on your plate, otherwise you couldn't get down from the table. And actually, there are studies that have shown that has impacted on people's having eating disorders by being forced to eat things that they don't want to, or
because they have no control over it.
Yeah, definitely. And we're not letting our children, if we do that, we're not letting them listen to their own bodies for their cues for when they're full, or even when they're hungry, because we're making them eat on our time schedule. I know at nurseries you have to do that, and that's absolutely fine, but that's why we're talking about thinking about when your snack is, so then that they are definitely hungry by the time it comes to lunch, and these are all healthy things that we have to support our children with.
Yeah, it's about meeting their needs rather than meeting the adult's agenda, isn't it? But of course, the adult's agenda is often because of the way they've been brought up and what was important in their childhoods around whatever it is, whether it be food or something else. And that's where I come back to. Sorry, Kat. I come back to the fact that adults need to be able to make good choices. And I think there needs to be more training and more awareness. I mean, you can become accredited. We were an accredited nursery with a local government scheme for healthy snacks, which made us really think about what we were offering the children, with their, particularly at snack time. And you can, I believe that there are other accreditations out there, but it's also about more than just the food. Well, now let's just see what our audience. Anybody got any comments in the audience? Everybody's always quiet on these debates, and then at the end somebody will make a comment. Okay, I think we've got quite a lot of people that are agreeing pretty much with what we're saying. Somebody's asking about in their nursery, children that have allergies or a special diet have a different colour plate to everybody else. What do you think about that, Kat?
I mean, I think that's helpful to make sure that you're not cross-contaminating things. Absolutely. Just thinking, this is in the you could do this in your setting as well. When I batch cook things, I label, like, the top of the lid will be red if it's meat and things. Obviously you have got to label everything and make sure you know the date as well, but that would be really helpful, so then everybody in the setting would know exactly what's where by just looking at the colour without having to even read anything.
I personally, I don't like it. I realise it's a health and safety thing there, but I don't think children should be singled out.
That would be the problem, unless you could have lots of different coloured plates and the children wouldn't realize that like all the different color plates could be different, but just choose red for the ones that, I'm not saying red, but I just said that
a color, particular color. You could have a particular color for the vegetarian, couldn't you? You can have a particular color for that's quite a good idea. I hadn't thought of that. Okay. Right, is there anything else? I'm having a look in the chat. No. Okay. How are we doing for time? We've got another 10 minutes. If there's something you'd like to talk about in 10 minutes, we don't have to use it all though.
Yeah, well, I was just going to say before, we've had a generation who were under rationing, so that has impacted their feelings on food and how you should use it and eat it and make sure it's not wasted, blah blah blah. But also we've had about 3 generations of diet culture from society, from magazines, from and what is really important and for healthy choices for our children is actually to declutter our language in front of children. And hopefully you wouldn't say this in a setting, but like saying someone is fat, you know, the fat controller in the Thomas the Tank Engine is no longer called fat controller.
What's he called now then?
I don't know what he's called now, but he's no longer. But I just think it is really important, even if, you know, like a parent comes in and they're going, oh, I'm trying to get fit for my summer holiday, you know, like that's different. Fit is an okay word. I think what we want for our children is to talk about our muscles and our strength and how fast we can run, rather than being thin. And you know, I just think there's a much different way we can use our language, and I think we do that with children in settings. So actually that's something that we need to talk to our parents about, because I do know as a nanny that I've heard parents say, I'm on a diet because I'm trying to be thin for something, or they say I want a bikini body for summer, and you're like, goodness me, your child is only 3 and they're listening to this already, and it's starting to make conflicts in their brains. And I mean, it's a whole society thing that we need to change, and hopefully we're going to get somewhere, but definitely in EYFS settings, if we're the ones empowering, and actually a lot of your staff might be feeling that way already, so you know, there's a lot of staff that is still
it's about adult baggage, isn't it?
And that's a huge thing. And you know, like if someone says, oh, I'm not going to have that cake today because I'm being good, your children will hear that. They will. You know, like there's someone says, oh, I'm not going to have a chocolate for someone's birthday because I'm being good. It's like, gosh, like just don't say anything. Just say, no, thank you. I don't want it today. You don't have to say that I want to be thin, or I'm trying to be healthy or something, because healthy is actually a balance.
That's really interesting, actually, Kat. I think we need to be, I mean, in my pedagogy, I'm very conscious of what I do, but I haven't been conscious about what I do around food. I mean, I've got 2 children, and they both enjoy going out to eat.
Yeah.
You know, it's a special occasion. We praise children by using food. We enjoy having, well, I mean, it's not necessarily a bad thing, because, you know, families get together around food, don't they?
Yeah.
You know, they have a meal together, they talk together. I'm not saying it's all bad, but I think we can condition our children to, not our personal children, but all children, I'm talking about.
All children.
You know, to regard food as some sort of praise. And at the moment, when there are lots of children that are hungry, you know, in the current economic climate, it makes it much more difficult for parents to afford the better foods as well. I think that's something we just need to mention. Which makes it even more important why we get it right. We should get it right in nurseries and preschools.
Yeah. But if we could empower our parents to learn how to cook from scratch, actually it is cheaper and you get way more. Making a bolognese from scratch, you can make a huge bolognese and freeze it, and it'll last you a month or so. And I think that is something that is really important. You were talking about food as rewards. I've got a whole chapter in my book actually about not using food as reward at all, and trying to think of, and I think we don't use food as rewards in settings very much, hopefully.
No.
But there's so much better things that you can give. Verbal praise is really, really great. Children
or just the child recognizing that they're feeling good about it.
Yeah, definitely. Or if you do want to have something physical, like a sticker, a stamper, as well, a stamper washes off, but that's like something that wouldn't ruin the environment. But there's different ways to reward our children other than food, and we have got a whole generation of people who comfort eat because when something goes wrong they give them food, or when they did something well they were given food, and then they associate that food with praise or reward or comfort or
feeling better.
Yeah, and that's the thing. It's psychological, unfortunately, and we don't want that for their adulthood. We don't want them to have to unpick that and undo that. And I'm coming from personal, personal feelings as well. Like I've found it very hard, and it's been a massive journey with my own food. But one of the things that I did do was start running marathons, and then I had to learn about fueling my body, and I had to learn about how to look after my body in that sense. And that's been, I'm not perfect. I don't think that's at all. And there are days where I just eat like a cheese wrap or something, but I do know that it's balanced, and I know that tomorrow I'll try different, So I just think, how can we help our children so they don't have to do what I had to do and unpick it and learn and unlearn all the habits?
Yes. I mean, one of our slogans is about getting everything right, helping people get things right with our software. And and so this really just falls so well into that, doesn't it? We have to get everything around food right for the children. It's just as important as helping them hold a pencil, really.
Yeah.
And we don't force children to hold pencils, do we? No. We give them pencils that are triangular, and we help them build up the strength in their muscles, etc., etc. And we really need to be thinking more about food in the same way, and get it right for our little children.
But speaking of fine motor skills, I talk a lot about those in my book, because preparing food is brilliant for practicing your fine motor skills and your gross motor skills. So yeah, they can learn how to use their pencil by prepping food together.
Yeah, proper tools.
Yeah, with the correct tools for the children, and
that's right.
Yeah, sensible. But if they learn how to use the proper tools correctly, then it's a life skill for their future,
and they're safe with them.
Well, they do have to know that it's a danger, and that you would never leave them on their own with certain.
But actually, cutting something with a blunt knife is more dangerous than cutting something with a sharp knife.
Yeah, I've written about that. So I was at first aid, and they said that. So actually, older people tend to go into hospital a lot because they've tried to use a blunt knife and it slipped, and then it's gone. And a sharp knife should not slip. So yes, it will cut you, but you're less likely to accidentally cut yourself.
Absolutely.
The worst one is people cutting avocados, and they have to go into hospital because they've cut down there. So yeah, don't do that.
Okay, that's interesting. Okay, Kat. Well, that's super. There's no more comments on the chat. I'm going to run the last bit of the presentation. Please get in contact with us. We're both of us very open to people just coming and asking us questions. And our contact details and everything are on the video. Right, that's the other one.